Peace to the universal family. Was good. Make sure my volume, my lights are on. All right. Peace to the universal family. Welcome back to another Monday episode of our Mentorship and Advocacy program. Every Monday, Mentorship Mondays, with a message, bringing a message like Melly Mel every Monday. So that's how you're going to remember the letter M. Just a quick reminder, the third edition is out. So you can find that at earthsaylove.com, Hip Hop and the Art of Peace Education. That's our second edition. So you'll see nice little improvement on the cover art and just some minor touch-ups on the interior. Same content, just third edition. Also, the journals, those are available as well on the mentorship tab on site. So we're using these really whenever they're needed, but we designated these for Wednesdays to add on and build. Basically it's a journal with inks on the interior. So you can sketch, you can write poetry, song lyrics, whatever you like. So it will serve everyone a little bit differently depending on your style. So we've got that in the mentorship tab on site. The link is in the video description and in the chat. And then most importantly, being that it is Monday, we are going to be back in our 2023 Mentorship and Advocacy Program Almanac. And we are in sequence number 26. We are officially halfway through 2023 in our 52 topics sequence, an original sequence. We are delivering this 2023. And so you can also find this on the mentorship tab on site if you want to follow along with us. It's got writing prompts for every month and season. You've got your calendars for important dates to remember, like birthdays. There's also adult coloring. Here's an example of some adult coloring, your weekly planners, and like I said, the writing prompts and so forth. So that is our first workbook for our mentorship and advocacy program. We are in sequence 26. So let's get right into it. This Monday, our topic is mental health, which I'm really excited to address this topic, something I'm very passionate about. I feel like I could never be prepared enough for this topic, and it's a continual learning process. So, one more thing I just want to mention, if this helps you, but I noticed, when I do draw and color in here, sometimes I draw really, really strong. So it might help to have something like a folder. I use the folder that I put in between the sheets, so when I color, it doesn't bleed as much. So I just wanted to mention that. That might be useful. That might be helpful to y'all. Again, let me give the proper introduction. I come in the name of Earth, Say Love. Say is short for savior, because we're all saviors out here, saving ourselves, saving lives, and empowering others to do the same. So welcome back. Again, this is Earth, Say Love's channel. Mentorship and Advocacy Program on Mondays with a message. So today's topic is mental health. So, and again, all the information is there on the mentorship tab on site, earthsaylove.com/mentorship. So if you're looking for a copy, or if you're looking for the updates, right now we're just going live every Monday. Wednesdays, we're still developing. We were going live on Fridays with the live art. Right now, we just got the jazz program, so you can kick back and work on the art. We might be doing private sessions, but we're not live streaming it right now. So that is the schedule with the mentorship program. And we're looking to develop Wednesdays more to have people on, just working on the technology and building still. And we strive to come on every Monday at 4:00. Sometimes we've been having a few bumps in the road in terms of conflicts with meetings and schedules. But to the best of our ability, we're coming on at 4:00 for our live on Mondays and Wednesdays. So stay tuned, hop on. But also, it's still available after. I'll make sure that at least my clients are getting the link. So let's get right into it. So of course, your assignment You got to, definitely write your June, your June writing prompt, any important dates, your weekly planners, any important planning appointments, goals, or just even journal a little bit about what you did that day. That's fine too. And your adult coloring, that's optional, that's therapeutic. So, that kind of, I like to color in my book and all that to, bring it more to life. So that's your assignment. And we'll get into some questions by the end of this episode. So again, we're in sequence 26, halfway through our 52 topic sequence. And our last Monday in June. So today's topic being mental health, I'm just going to go over some definitions and we'll get into it. But let me start with a few definitions. So what is mental health? A few definitions for mental health include a person's condition with regards to their psychological and emotional well-being. The World Health Organization defines it as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. I thought that was important to really break that down a little bit. So a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities. So that is a great, that's a great reference point right there, because oftentimes an indication that there may be some lacking in mental health may be where, you lack some confidence or just not really confident in one's own abilities. So that's a warning sign to pay attention to. So someone with strong mental health, with wellness and well-being, we're going to realize our own abilities. Also, part of the definition, can cope with the normal stresses of life. I wanted to emphasize normal because, a traumatic event is not considered a normal event. So I also want to bring that in, if you're dealing with a traumatic event or, a very high stress situation, that's abnormal. So it's actually normal to have some challenges coping with a traumatic event or, an abnormal level of stress. So I just want to mention that, that's actually our body, our mind and our body indicating that we're dealing with too much stress on our own. So, and then of course, can work productively and fruitfully and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. And that can vary for different people. Different individuals have different skill sets, talents, interests, abilities. And there may be other, health conditions that may limit one's abilities in certain areas. So, but the whole idea is to be able to contribute productively and fruitfully to one's community in whatever capacity that the individual is able to. So let me also break down a couple other things within that definition. So psychological, that's of or relating to the mind, related to the mental and emotional state of a person. And emotional, that doesn't necessarily mean like when we hear the word emotional, you think like intense emotions. The word is used that way as well. But here, emotional just it just means related to a person's emotions. So it doesn't have to be intense, just related to the emotions. Well-being is the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. So really, that's really the key focus right there, is a state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. It's important to really dig deeper into this because, again, if one is lacking in mental health, they may not have a solid grip or understanding on what health looks like, what happiness looks like, or even what comfortability looks like. But that will be our goalpost, is the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. And I would say even beyond that, of being supremely comfortable, supremely healthy, and supremely happy. Takes work for most people to achieve that state of supreme wellness and well-being. All right, so On the other side of the coin, so we're exploring mental health. So the other side of that is looking at mental illnesses. So mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of these. Mental illnesses can be associated with distress or problems functioning in social, work, or family activities. And I, of course, must say there is absolutely no shame in having in having a mental illness or struggling with some mental health issues. That's nothing to be ashamed of. It's very common. There is still a level of stigma and discrimination in our society surrounding mental health, and that's what really brings on a lot of shame for people. People, we feel, we can feel that stigma, we can feel that discrimination, we can feel that, of feeling less than. There is that stigma, and it's very unfortunate because you are never less than. Having a mental health struggle, having a mental illness, it never makes a person less than. It just means they have an illness, they have a health issue that needs some attention, that needs some healing, just like the flu, just like a common cold. If you come down with some physical ailment, that doesn't make a person any less than. It just means they may need to slow down and take some certain steps to recover from that illness. It's always, the body is keeping the score, and the body is sending these signals and showing us these symptoms, and how we can work to heal and restore our supreme state of peace and wellness. So, again, no shame in that. Of course, that's why we're here, raising more awareness, because we do still have that stigma and discrimination in society. There are four main types of mental illnesses, although there are more, but the four main types are categorized as mood disorders, such as depression or bipolar, or borderline personality. Well, actually, that may be a personality disorder. I may have misspoke there, but mood disorders would include depression and bipolar. I think borderline is in between a mood disorder and a personality disorder. Don't quote me on that. I may need to double check that. So, mood disorders, anxiety disorders, which would, of course, include general anxiety disorder, but also other anxiety disorders like OCD, which is really could is it's complicated, it's different, and manifests in different ways, but that's really just having very obsessive compulsive thought patterns, behaviors that really interrupt one's regular functioning abilities. There's also the personality disorders, as I referenced, which have to do with whether how one really. I should have looked for more information on how to verbalize this. Personality disorders might be something like narcissistic personality disorder or antisocial personality disorder. So those are disorders that make it difficult to have healthy relationships with other individuals due to that personality disorder. Again, there is therapy for that. There are ways to take proactive action to improve one's health, whichever type of illness one may have. The other main category would be psychotic disorders, which would include, for example, schizophrenia. And then there's also, like, for example, schizoaffective disorder. That's another one that is both the combination of schizophrenia and bipolar. So it's psychotic and a mood disorder. So there definitely are overlays, overlapping. If we had, some of those circles, you would see some overlap in these different disorders. There are also other mental health disorders to include eating disorders, stress disorders, such as post-traumatic stress disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I think they had them listed as trauma disorders. I always think of it as a stress disorder. And for me, I understand that as being, well, for post-traumatic stress disorder, that might just be one very traumatic incident that affects somebody more long term. And then complex post-traumatic stress disorder, that is usually cumulative, many stressful events, chronic stressful events, not a normal, as I said earlier, not a normal stress of life, but a chronic abnormal level of stress can lead to complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Also, substance abuse disorders, that is a mental illness as well. So addiction, that actually is that is actually a mental illness. It's something, a chemical dependency, and it is something that requires um, various forms of therapy, support groups, things of that nature. Also, there's ADD, ADHD, the attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Um, I think, I'm not sure which cluster. I think that is goes closer to anxiety in that cluster. I'm not sure. Um, and then autism spectrum. I don't really think of that one as a mental illness because it's so different. That's more, genetic, biological. Um, and it's not something so much developed as it tends to be something that someone is born with. So let's talk about some signs of mental illness. Some signs of mental illness can include unusual or illogical thoughts. And as you're listening, if you're one of my clients, if you want to, of course, you can take any notes, but if any of these speak to you or that you experience, you might want to jot these down, or if you need to rewind, so that you can explore some of these things for this week's assignment, this sequence. So unusual or illogical thoughts. So it might be like a fear that's really unrealistic, but is pervasive anyway, something of that nature. Unreasonable anger or irritability. Like if you just cannot control your anger or you're really irritable, that is a sign or a symptom. Poor concentration or memory. If you're having a hard time concentrate, I mean, that could be some different things. It could be, a high level of stress or fatigue. Of course, I can't diagnose of just one symptom. That would be for a doctor. But those are all just signs. Of course, hearing voices that other people don't hear. It's common for someone to think that they may be experiencing telepathy or a spiritual experience, but really that is a sign that to check in with a doctor, because that very well could be related to a mental illness as well, or some other brain disease. Increased or decreased sleep. So sometimes with depression and anxiety especially, but it could definitely be another mental illness. One may have a really difficult time going to sleep, or once they get to sleep way too long and have a difficult time getting up. So insomnia, those are all symptoms. Also, increase or decrease in appetite. Sometimes it happens to everybody, right? Our appetite's not always the same. But if it's really abnormal, or you're seeing real swings in it, or it's just really abnormally low or abnormally high, that could also be an indication. Also, if you're really controlling over your food. Now, I mean, a lot of these symptoms I can relate to. I'm really, really picky with my food, but again, I strive to do that for health reasons and but there can be the healthy side on the spectrum and an unhealthy side. So the symptoms in themselves don't necessarily indicate an illness, but they're just warning signs and symptoms to watch for. But being too controlling with your food, or having a negative body image, those could certainly be signs of an illness. Also, excessive exercise. I love to exercise. It really helps me maintain my wellness and my well-being. But if it's to an unhealthy degree, like again, it's not so much the exercise, that may be an indication, but it's more so the negative body image, um, that would be, if that is the underlying reason for the excessive exercise, that's where it would be more unhealthy. Um, yeah, or if there's fatigue or anything like that going on, you definitely want to consult a doctor. It is possible to exercise or not get the proper nutrients you need. So again, definitely consult a doctor when necessary. Also, lack of motivation. I know a lot of people struggle with lack of motivation. Um, and it may be a symptom of depression, just having that lack of drive. It may be it may indicate some low self-esteem, but it does kind of tie into depression and possibly something else. Um, Being withdrawn from people, just really isolating oneself, that could be an indication of a mental illness. Um, Again, such as depression, or it could be something even more serious. Drug use, that is always going to be a major red flag. Um, and it's interesting because studies vary, but drug use absolutely can trigger psychotic illness or another mental illness. Drug use can absolutely contribute to depression, but in some cases, different psychoactive drugs, to include marijuana, believe it or not, can induce schizophrenia and other psychotic disorders. So that is something to, definitely the best is just to stay away. Also, even like alcohol, like excessive drinking. Of course, no minor should be drinking, but even for my adults out there, that may be an indication of covering up some depression or another anxiety or another mental health issue. And then struggling with a sense of um, a lack of meaning, a lack of purpose, or just feelings of unworthiness or suicidal thoughts. Absolutely. That is a red flag. That is a sign and a symptom that there may be something. Definitely, if you're having those type of thoughts, I would urge you, to reach out to a therapist right away. Let somebody know, let a safe adult know, someone that cares about you. You can always call the suicide hotline, or you could reach out to the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Um, you can find their hotline and they will connect you to local resources. So those are just a few of the resources, but I would definitely not hesitate if you are having those sort of thoughts. Definitely reach out for help. Don't prolong that. Don't wait. Um, Also, just having obsessive thoughts, being obsessed with a certain topic or person, place, or thing, such as like religion or something. If it's really obsessive, that may indicate an illness as well. And I mean, again, that's kind of difficult because sometimes you might feel like, no, I'm just passionate about this topic, and you might be. But again, it's just a sign, it's a symptom, it's another thing to look out for. Lacking hygiene or not really taking care of one's hygiene, often that could be a symptom of depression, but it could be something, again, more serious. Either way, it is an indication of a lack of wellness, a lack of mental well-being, as well as not following through on one's responsibilities. Those are all indications, or just low performance at school or at work. Like if all of a sudden your performance level, your effort goes down, your ability goes down. I know that happened to me. That's definitely happened to me before, where I was just dealing with way too many abnormal stressors in my life, and my performance just went down. I just didn't have the concentration. I just didn't have the presence to really focus on those work or school responsibilities when I had that level of abnormal stress in my life. So those are all common signs. So again, you might want to just go through and write down any that you relate to, and maybe explore that a little bit. And that's something that we can talk about, as well as you can speak with a therapist about as well, or another safe adult. Let's get into some of the causes of mental illnesses. some of the key contributors would be, for example, genetic. So if you do have a history of that illness within the family, whether it's depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, autism, etc., though, that genetic indicator would just put you at a higher risk. Drugs, as mentioned, absolutely can trigger psychosis and other mental illnesses. What I meant to say before, what I was alluding to, is there's also studies about how someone with a mental illness might just be more prone to use drugs to quote unquote self-medicate, or as a way to kind of cope with that underlying illness. It might be like a case of which came first, the chicken or the egg sort of situation. But either way, drugs can absolutely trigger mental illness. So that's why it's best to really just stay clean and sober and take care of your health. Biological. So aside from any mental health issues, there could be other biological health conditions, such as an autoimmune disease or something, that could make one more vulnerable or susceptible to a mental illness as well. Then there are also the early environmental factors. So for example, any adverse childhood experiences, I can share with all of you as well. I have a copy of a test for your ACE, your ACE score, your adverse childhood experiences. You can find that online, but I'll probably add that as a resource on the mentorship page on site as well. So you can go through and check your own ACE score. I checked mine. Mine was too high. Mine was way too high. And, having adverse childhood experiences, definitely, such as abuse or neglect, there are very specific questions on this test. And again, there might be, actually, the test didn't include a lot of, there's certain things the test doesn't include, but it's a good gauge about, adverse childhood experiences, which again are really stressful. They may indicate a chronic stress, so you would be more prone and susceptible to a stress disorder, as well as maybe depression or anxiety. Let me say peace to the chat, peace, and welcome to Sequence 26. So again, early environmental factors, check your ACE score. Also, trauma or stress. If you have a traumatic event or are dealing with an abnormal level of stress, absolutely that could trigger, again, more likely depression, anxiety, or stress disorder, but really it could be any. If you have an extremely high level of stress, you could even have, a nervous breakdown or a psychotic break. You could have a break with reality. All those things are possible. So definitely you want to do your best to eliminate stress from your life. Also, personality. One's personality can also contribute to mental health or mental illness, such as being a perfectionist, like striving for perfection to an unhealthy level, or having low self-esteem. So I would think of those more as indicators than causes. But again, if you have a prolonged personality with perfection and low self-esteem, that could contribute as well to a mental illness. So, pardon, I'm not sure of the question on this chat. Did I ever, the workbook is available. The links are in the video description. If you want to order the workbook, it's there on the website. I'll give you another look at it in a minute here, but I'll also add it to the chat. So we're in sequence 26 right now. So we're in letter M. Last Monday, we were in mentorship. So we were doing another overview of mentorship. And this Monday, the topic is mental health. So we're in there and we're creeping right up on July. So the topics, there's space for note taking. I didn't write, this is more of a workbook than a book. There are writing prompts, but I didn't write. That's why we're going over the topics together. Absolutely. Yes, that would be great. If you want to reach out to, there is, of course, you can message me here, but there is a contact form on the website. So you can order there, but you can also reach out and connect with me there. Since we're coming up on July, there's going to be a writing prompt for the season because we're just entering summer. So there's a writing prompt for South. So you've got that. And then there's also going to be the writing prompt for the month of July. So every season and every month, there is a writing prompt to help us transition into each month with some goals and, important dates. So that's coming right up, July. We're in our last week of June. So that's all coming up. So yeah, that's available on site. So some suggestions, if you're noticing any of these warning signs, certainly the first step would be, talk to somebody you trust. If you've got a mentor, a teacher, a safe adult in your life, but sooner the better if you could see a doctor and speak about those symptoms that you're experiencing. And that way they could either refer you to a specialist or to a psychologist. That way you could get some more insight and get the appropriate plan in order to be proactive. And that's one message I definitely want to get across, is just that, again, there's no shame in struggling with some mental health issues or experiencing a mental illness. And I want to say it that way. It's something we experience. It's not a part of our identity, even though it's something that you may experience for a long time to a point that it feels like it's part of your identity. It's really not. It is an experience, it's part of a human experience. And there's no shame in that. So it is important to be proactive if you're experiencing these symptoms. The more proactive you are to improve your mental and emotional wellness and well-being, the more success you're going to have. It's not something that just resolves on its own. It's something, in some cases it can improve without much effort, but that would be an exception to the rule. In most cases, it's going to take, your proactive effort to improve your mental wellness. So, as mentioned, see a doctor. Therapy. So willfully, you will get referred to a therapist. And, there's also support groups. And that may depend. Not everybody has health insurance. So I do understand that. But if you do, if you don't, if you're able to even apply for the free medical insurance, or if there's some issue, if you're in the system of care, or there's some other issue going on, make sure you reach out to that safe adult, the person who can support you in advocating that you are getting your medical needs met. Unfortunately, a lot of times our vulnerable populations do slip between the cracks. And that's when, things, if they are last a long time, there's a lower level of success in actually treating or overcoming that illness. So definitely be proactive, see a doctor, attend therapy where possible. Support groups are another great thing. And there's a whole bunch of different types of support groups. For example, Al-Anon, like if you have a loved one who is an alcoholic or something like that, there are support groups for that, for family members. There are also support groups for different types of mental illness. Sometimes it's all inclusive. Sometimes it can be broken down into, different specific areas. Again, a great resource to go to would be NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And from there, they can direct you to resources in your area. Or you might just do a local search or call, 211 or whatever. I check with NAMI. I also do the local search. Medicine. So I want to mention this. I have been holistic for, God knows, 22 years, that I've been on my holistic healing journey. But I do want to mention that some illnesses require medication. And again, I'm not an expert on that. That would be a doctor. Of course, there are certain things that can improve your mental health, But in some cases, you might need an antidepressant, you may need a mood stabilizer or an antipsychotic. Definitely, if you're having that level of illness and struggling, some of those things, really required becoming stabilized in order to have a higher level of success. So I just want to say that, even though I'm someone that strives to do everything holistically and natural, but I just want to say I've seen a lot first, second, third hand. Well, maybe not firsthand, but I've seen a lot of things where people are resistant to getting help, and unfortunately, it certain illnesses get worse without treatment. So don't be ashamed of that if you do need medicine. And sometimes it does require some patience in figuring out exactly what the individual needs to treat the illness. So I just want to say that. But on the other side of that coin, lifestyle, if you are able to improve your health, your physical health, your emotional health through your lifestyle, that's also going to make a tremendous impact on managing your mental health and improving any mental illness. So someone might not need medicine, or they may need it for a while, but be able to transition their lifestyle to a point that they're able to manage it. So I just want to say that there are two sides to that coin. But exercise can certainly help. For example, yoga, but even just walking, even just a nice long walk, or running, or going to the gym, or dance, or other forms, martial arts, all those things can help. Sports, um, a healthy diet. So nutrition is also a very big part of mental health. If one is malnourished, that's one thing I rarely see on the list, but I would include that. I don't think that's really included in adverse childhood experiences, but being malnourished, or maybe it is, and I forget, but being malnourished, it not only is it stressful, um, but it depletes the body of what it needs to function, and for the brain itself to be healthy, for the body to be healthy, to have a healthy mental and emotional state. So eating the proper foods, that is such a huge part of this whole equation. Another thing I didn't see listed, but also rest. You need a proper amount of rest. In fact, having insufficient rest can absolutely trigger psychosis and other mental health issues. So that is very important. So exercise, a healthy diet, rest, social support cannot be overstated. You do need a healthy support system. And even if that's only, if you have to start small, that's okay. Most people only really have a handful of really good friends. Some people are more social, they may have more, but for many of us, we just have that small inner circle as a real support system. And that's so important. And if you do lack that, even just things like watching YouTube, looking for the channels that kind of validate your experience, and also working on some healthy positive self affirmations, which is something that we do in mentorship as well. So to retrain the mind, because oftentimes with low self esteem and lacking a support system, the subconscious may be playing some old tapes with some negative self talk. So we want to retrain, we want to unplug that. We want to retrain the mind with some positive self affirmations. And also with lifestyle, avoiding drugs and alcohol. Because again, sometimes an individual who's prone to a mental illness may utilize that to cope, but really it just triggers the illness. Or it may just be that the drug actually can trigger a mental illness, affect the brain and all of that. So also other relaxation techniques such as meditation, or like I said, going for a walk, spending more time in nature, all those things can help. They call it nature bathing, like just going all out in nature. Those things can really improve one's mental wellness and sense of inner peace. And then, of course, in any case, if you're feeling like harming yourself or someone else, there's absolutely no shame. And I would absolutely encourage checking into a hospital. It's okay. If you feel like hurting yourself or someone else, it's okay to call 911 and, and what is your emergency? It's okay to let them know. And that way that they could take you, do a wellness check and take you to a hospital and have you checked. And that way you could get the proper resources you need to ensure that you are not harming yourself or anybody else. No shame in that. Not at all. I would certainly encourage that. I know this can be really difficult because if you're already struggling with mental health, it there may be other, social and economic factors why you may not really trust the medical establishment or trust the system. I get that. Just as much as, or if not more than anybody, or just as much as anybody, I really understand that. And that's something I definitely want to write about more, because I just want to encourage people, if you are struggling, it's okay to reach out for help. And as a matter of fact, you need to, you need to have that healthy support system, and you may need medical support and attention for some of the more serious illnesses. There's no shame in that. That's actually called self-care. That's you taking care of yourself to ensure that you're taking those proactive steps to preserve your mental wellness or to improve it. Um, so what are some things we can do? I think we've kind of covered this, but let's recap some things we can do to support our mental health. As mentioned, a healthy support system, family, friends, and community. Some of us are more blessed to have healthy family relationships than others. That's okay. Everybody's got a different hand that they were dealt, and that's okay. But definitely, fostering healthy relationships with family whenever possible, or like your chosen family or foster family or kinship family, your friends. And that's challenging too, because you want to have healthy friends. And again, you want to support your friends if they're going through something, but you want to ensure that they're not dragging you down. So that's very important. Also, community. So just getting involved in different interests of yours, maybe going to a church or a local poetry reading, or I don't know, going ice skating. I don't know. I'm just trying to throw some ideas out. Going to a basketball game, whatever it is, but going out into the community and being able to have healthy interactions, that is so vital to support one's mental health and wellness. Healthy body. So like I mentioned above, exercise, a healthy lifestyle, healthy diet, and plenty of rest. You definitely need all three of those. Taking steps to reduce stress, as mentioned. So both proactively seeking things that are relaxing, but also recognizing the things that are stressful in your life and either removing them or creating healthier ways of coping with them. Some stressors in life are normal, and we want to be able to deal with the normal stresses of life. But depending on our state of being, it may be too much for some people at certain times, and that's okay too. But again, we want to reduce stress, absolutely. Practicing optimism, so those self affirmations, let's work on more of those. Perhaps that's something we could do Wednesday, is just working on some positive self affirmations. And practicing optimism. Gratitude, that's another way of practicing optimism, is every day when you wake up, think of the things that you're grateful for. Try to think of 10 things that you're grateful for, and just be grateful for each of those things, and just sit in that state of gratitude. And then think of the things that you're grateful that you're going to get to conquer on that day, that you're going to get to do. So that state of gratitude, optimism. Also healthy coping skills, and being able to be adaptive to life's problems. So that will really vary depending on the situation. But when something comes up, just if you're feeling a certain way, knowing healthy ways to cope with that, which might be just taking a time out. Like if something stresses you, maybe it's just like, even if it's an argument, maybe it's just finding a healthy way to say, you know what, I'm feeling really irritated right now. Let me just take a break. I want to come back to this conversation. It's important, but let's just take a break so I can gather take care of myself. Finding ways to do that for yourself, which again, we can work on in one-on-ones, and seeking support. So if you're lacking support, the first step is recognizing that and being vocal about that, finding that safe person you can say that to. So little by little, you can take that good, orderly direction, go in the right direction to improve your state of supreme health and wellness. Um, Again, let me re-mention again, pardon, that was redundant, but let me restate that the problems we still face are stigma and discrimination. So unfortunately, there is a lot of stigma in society, that mental illness is more seen as part of that person's identity rather than an illness that they're experiencing and that they need support to overcome and recover from or to cope with. So we want to raise more awareness to reduce that stigma so more people feel more comfortable in actually seeking support, because that stigma often prevents people from seeking the support that they need. And discrimination, because there's that stigma in society, there's also discrimination. I can't tell you, but I'm sure, many people have been discriminated against, lost, maybe haven't been hired or lost jobs or who knows, or just have been left out. So again, we want to work on raising awareness so we can reduce that stigma, support people in seeking the support that they need, and to reduce that discrimination that is there in society. Um, and about 1 in 12 individuals who experience mental illness do have suicidal thoughts. Um, so again, really want to encourage you to be vocal and reach out to somebody about that if that's something you experience. Um, it's okay. And it's okay to ask somebody if they're having those thoughts. There is a good training you all can do. I've done twice. I have one of my best friends, she facilitates the mental health first aid. That's something you can look for, mental health first aid, see if that's something offered in your community. I'm going to drop that in the chat. I'll see if I can add those links as well. Mental health first aid. I've been certified in it twice, and that's one of the things they mention. It covers a lot. It's still an introduction. It's maybe not like high level, for a mental health worker or so forth, but just for day-to-day purposes, it's great to have that knowledge, to know how to respond in certain situations. And one of that was just speaking about, it's okay to ask somebody if they're having thoughts of suicide, or if they do, take it seriously. Like, it's very rare that somebody would, if somebody is saying that they're having those thoughts, they are. Like, nobody's just going to say that, unless they're having some sort of severe, some mental health issue, mental health crisis, or mental illness. So do take those things seriously. Reach out to the proper supports. Again, the NAMI, I'm going to drop that in the chat as well, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. That is a great resource to connect you with other resources in your area. National Alliance on Mental Illness. So those are just a few. There is also the suicide hotline. So yeah, and it's okay. It's okay to call a hotline. I've had to do it before. If there's no one else to reach out to, there's nothing wrong with that. You've got to take care of you and your health and put you first, because no one knows what you need like you do. So that's also part of the journey, is just figuring out what our needs are and how to meet them ourselves. So willfully, this has been helpful. Again, if you need to rewind and go back, if you want to go over some of the symptoms that I reviewed, and in that section, sequence 26 in the workbook, where we went over mentorship and mental health, if you want to take some notes, maybe discuss some of the things that you're still either have previously overcome, or that you're still feeling some challenges with, and then we can discuss that as well in our one-on-ones. I would be more than happy to. that would be great. Or if you do have any diagnoses or any concerns, you can certainly write about that as well. Or if you have questions about what you're experiencing or any diagnosis you may have, in our one-on-ones, we can discuss that. Or if you're not one of my clients, certainly with your safe adult person in your life, therapist, or whoever you're able to speak with, or just in your journal. Again, so we've got the workbook. This is where I'm asking you to write about. But we've also got our journals as well. So if you need extra space than just those couple pages, those couple sheets, this is why, one of the reasons why we made this supplemental journal. If you needed more space in the workbook, but also, for all the coping, the healthy art therapy, therapeutic arts that we're doing with poetry, memoir, and so forth, you've also got this. Or just journaling every morning, writing your things that you're grateful for every morning. So I strive to write in it every morning. It's still a work in progress, but I've been making my progress on that as well. So that covers just about everything. Again, I'll just mention one more time to anybody who's just hopping on, the third edition of my first publication, that's also out. So you can also find that on the website at earthsaylove.com. If you check the menu, you'll see the titles. So that's there, just in case you're interested. That is pretty much all for now. There is so much in the works right now. It's unbelievable. It's taken a while to make the progress and get to where I want to be, but I'm very grateful myself to have you all here with me. I'm grateful we've made it 26 sequences. And so we're just over the bend, and we'll be preparing our workbook for 2024, our journal and our workbook for 2024 as well. So that is really all I have for you now. Thank you all for tuning in. I look forward to our one-on-ones. Anyone else tuning in who's interested in the program, who's interested in getting there as an individual, or for your group, if you're individual and interested in joining, certainly you can purchase the content, the workbook, the journal, or you can just message me there. You can reach out and we can see how we can collaborate. Again, we're doing this as kind of like a test run, both to provide additional resources to our clients, but also to see what the need is out there. If more mentors are needed, this may help us gauge the need out there, or any agencies that want to get in contact with us. That would be great. So that is all for now. If you have any comments, questions, please drop the comments below. All the links are there in the video description to the website. We also are doing a back to school drive. So I just put a flyer together, and there's a link. We might need to, I think the link might have the items listed backwards. So I got to get that corrected. But we do have that as well. So if there's anyone out there who would be interested in making a tax deductible donation, that is also listed in the video description below. So thank you all so much. I will see you all, inshallah, on Wednesday, or definitely next Monday. So again, Mondays is for mentorship. We come with a message. Wednesdays is for celebrating our wins. It's our women's empowerment segment. And, our primary focus are young adults ages 12 and up, 12 to 24. But really any, an individual who's coming with respect and seeking self-improvement, we welcome that. So that is all. I leave you with the universal greetings of peace. Again, I come in the name of Earth. Say love. Say is short for savior, because we're all saviors out here, saving ourselves, saving lives, and encouraging and empowering others to do the same. So with that, I leave you in the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Peace. Peace and blessings, family.